It is time for comments from YouTube, which of course comes to you each Monday regarding the Vikings. I am Judd. He is Declan, co-host of the show. And I am willing to bet, Declan Goff, I'm going to go out on a limb here and bet that we have quite a few comments regarding, let me see here, the head coaching search.
Yes, a lot of them. A lot of takes coming in from our YouTube comments section. If you'd like your question answered, leave a comment here. Specifically for the comments from YouTube Edition. We'll be doing these twice a week now that the season is over. But this is still your show, 7 days a week, Minnesota Vikings content. So if you want your question answered, comment on our YouTube page. You can also send us some questions via the Score North app as well. It's a central hub for everything we do. Let's start with this one, Judd, because as you said, a lot of comments about possible options here. And it's very volatile, obviously, with the head coaching cycle moving all over the place. So who knows?
Up in the air. Harbaugh's in, Harbaugh's out. O'Connell's in. Okay.
Let's start with John's comment here. He says, either hire a past successful coach or flip a coin on a rookie head coach. Two paths there for John. Hire a past successful coach or flip a coin on a rookie head coach. I will say, Raheem Morris is a past head coach. I wouldn't label it as a success his first go around. Not that it was his fault, but I wouldn't label it as a success. And outside of the major candidates, Judd, it doesn't really seem like they have taken anyone at least seriously or into deep consideration that isn't Jim Harbaugh from the terms of a successful past head coach. The Doug Peterson steam doesn't really seem like nothing's going to brew there. What do you make of John's comment? Either hire a past successful coach or flip a coin on a rookie head coach.
Well, I guess despite the fact he flamed out with the 49ers that Jim Harbaugh would be considered the past successful coach. Now, it did, I believe, go 4 years and out, including 3 very successful ones and an appearance in the Super Bowl. But you know what? The problem here is this. So I would rather that they go with a young coach that they bet on as opposed to what you might consider to be a successful or recycled coach. Now, Harbaugh is probably not recycled because he's only had one pro job and it was for 4 years. But that being said, I think a guy like DeMeco Ryans is intriguing. He definitely has an it factor. And look, I think one of the things that bothered the Wilfs and has basically since their second year that they owned the Vikings is this. And I'm not even saying that there's a solution to the problem, but I think it bothers them that Mike Tomlin left the building after 1 year and turned out to be such a damn good coach. We all saw it, and it was a year into Childress, so I don't think there was ever a consideration of, fire Brad now. That being said, though, I think they learned a lesson, and that is if a guy has the ability to command a room and is a really smart, bright guy, you can't get hung up on, he's only been, an assistant coach for X amount of time, or he's too young. Now, that's a tricky thing to navigate and be right about, but for what the Vikings are doing, I would almost prefer to go the younger route and take a chance. This is, sports is all about that, right? Sports is all about gambling and taking chances. I get tired of this guy's been a coach before, so if they take a chance, if they take a chance and try and draft a quarterback too, which they probably have to at some point in time, I'm not going to criticize that. Hopefully they have the personnel and the right people in place who hit on their decisions. But we get very afraid of change here and of being wrong. And flat out in sports, sometimes you're going to be wrong. It's just It's that simple.
Yeah, not everyone bats 1,000. I kind of, not to spin in a different direction, but it kind of irritates me when people call out Schefter. Well, Schefter was wrong. Schefter was wrong about Brady. Just number one, have you ever been right at your job, Joe Plumber or Joe Real Estate guy? Like, you're wrong. Sometimes you're wrong.
Schefter's not going to be wrong too.
And Schefter, more odds than not, he's going to be right in that regard. Back to the Vikings, though. I will say that it is an interesting route to take because I think if they go with the Jim Harbaugh route, which we'll get into here with more comments in just a little bit, that I think it accelerates the process and not doesn't delay any time period of, we'll give you a little buffer. We'll see what happens. That's a win now hire. That's a splash hire. And I don't think unless Jim's and I could be completely wrong here, unless Jim has said, no, I do want to tear this down. Give me a year or two to build it back up. But I don't think Jim Harbaugh would leave Michigan for that mindset, Judd. Like, I don't, if Harbaugh's coming here, it'd be, no, I can see it with this roster and I want to win right now, and I'm not going to delay that process.
I think that's exactly right. I think that he knows, he has to know that in the National Football League, his shelf life is probably a maximum of 5 years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if he's going to come here, it's because I think he's going to say, I can get the most from Kirk. This offense is really good. I'm good with quarterbacks. With the rest of the candidates, it's not that they're going to try and be bad, but I think that there's more of a window of opportunity to build a new team, which, by the way, I sort of like.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much more that you can run this thing back. There are some great pieces, but there's also pieces that probably need to go. And if Harbaugh got the job, wouldn't want them to go. So the more I think about this, I do like the Purple Daily Judd thinks that the Harbaugh thing would be great fun. It'd be fantastic fun.
Yeah. So is the executive producer.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that Phil does as well. But the Judd who covers the team and knows what's best probably thinks it's best to go with a coach who could be great, could fail. But the flip side is more patient and is willing to allow for a building. Mm-hmm. The building blocks, which is also going to include subtraction of some current players.
Craig says if they are going to tank, they'll hire DeMeco Ryans. If they decide to stick with Kirk, they'll go with Harbaugh. What do you think of Craig's assessment there, Judd? If they go DeMeco Ryans, you think that's the slow burn, slow play, hey, let me get my guys, let me build up that defense again? That's my big thing. And look, handling and creating a defense takes time, and the Vikings' defensive pieces are completely up in the air right now. It's going to be a slow burn to get them back up. But what do you think of Craig's assessment? If they go DeMeco Ryans, it's probably to tank and get better capital and get better roster construction. But if they went with Harbaugh, the odds are that they'd actually stick with Kirk. What do you think of that?
I think that's probably correct. And I don't know that tank is the right word with Ryans, but I do think that if you go with O'Connell, Ryans, or perhaps Morris, I think you would be definitely more inclined to hit a reset button. Harbaugh, no. And I'm trying to think back. I want to say, so Mike took over a defense that was putrid in 2013. 2014 was his first year, and I think their ranking was not great. Mm-mm. And by 15, they had basically changed things and defensively had gotten good. So the thing about the defense, too, and the schemes is it doesn't take years. We seem to think that what we call rebuilds are 5 years. They're really not. They can be quick. So I would say that if you brought in a defensive guy like DeMeco, your defense could pop back up quickly. Probably not in 2022, but I see no reason why things, Declan, can't be geared towards whoever is coaching this team with being extremely competitive by 23.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Eric brings up a different side, though, in our YouTube comment section. He says, I can see Jim wanting a rebuild so he can build the team in his image, and think about it from an egomaniac perspective, end quote, from Eric. What do you think of Jim's comment there regarding, Eric's comment there regarding Jim Harbaugh actually wanting to kind of strip things down because he is such an egomaniac that he would want all of his pieces? What do you think of that?
I don't think so. I think he would want to win. And again, I think he has to know, perhaps it's deep down in Jim Harbaugh's heart, that he's not a guy who comes to a place and lasts 8 years or 7 years. I think the most he's going to last, especially in the National Football League, is 5. So no, I think if Jim came here, the whole intention and the Wilfs would be excited by the prospect of what he could tell them about this is going, I'm going to get here and we're going to hit the ground running. So I disagree with all due respect.
Yeah. Calvin says one more comment here on Harbaugh. He goes, enough of John Bacon and Jim Harbaugh. I don't care what Harbaugh has done as a head coach in the past. I'm done with the Vikings if they hire him and will boycott watching their game. Come on, Vikings Nation. Let's support the other first-time head coach candidates. Could you see a fan starting to boycott, Judd, if Jim Harbaugh was hired here?
It'd be a 3-ring circus. Why would you boycott that? No, it'd be like Christmas every day. I see a lot of that. I'm done with them. I'm going to boycott them. And then the season starts and fans come back. So, no, I do not think that the aside from a very select few who might hate Harbaugh and or Michigan, I do not see a mass boycott of this team because of who the coach is. Sorry.
I get it. Transitioning to some other off-season and off topics, not including the head coach. Before I do that, Judd Zulgad, but when you're done watching Championship Weekend, you start now getting back into the reckless speculation ideas of the Minnesota Vikings. What's the first beverage that you're cracking open to get those ideas in your head?
Let me see what that would be. That would be a product from my friends from Surly Brewing, and in particular, the best IPA I'm going with in the entire world. Take that. Surly Furious, of course, which I hope that people had right by them, a can. In fact, I've got one right here, a Furious during Championship Sunday, which, just like the divisional round, was spectacular. Surly Furious is the beer to have by your side in 2 weeks. Super Bowl, I hope that people are enjoying a Surly. And if you are, send me a picture, of course, on Twitter. Show us your cans.
Show us your cans.
Jay Zolgad on Twitter.
Show us your taps. Whatever you're consuming.
Yeah, the taps are good too.
Don't forget a Surly Furious tap. Don't get me wrong, I like it out of a can.
Furious.
But and anything, I have extra
I've got
Citras.
A list of them now.
Yep,
yeah.
you got there's a whole list of them. They're great. They're great beers. I love me a good Surly Furious tap beer. It's one of the better ones out of its tap.
It's
damn
very,
good out of
very
its tap.
Good. I agree.
Tom says, I think the Wilfs will give Cousins one more year to see if it was Zimmer and Kubiak and via a maybe Stafford changes of scenery. And he actually tells it to you, Judd, because he says, number one, the Vikings' offensive line was 28th, the defense was 31st, 27th in rushing alloweds, 26th in passing, just not a good defense. And he thinks actually that the Wilfs will give Kirk one more chance and also kind of take that change of scenery route to say, all right, was it the infrastructure or was it Kirk? What do you think of Tom's assessment that the Wilfs will give Kirk one more chance here?
I don't like the idea. I think Tom might be right. I think the Stafford thing, while I do not think that the two are comparable completely, I think the Stafford thing is going to be broached and discussed. And it's always, Declan, easy to make a scapegoat or a bad guy from the guy who's gone, right? And look, Zim in the last 2 years or so definitely did some things wrong. And there's no question that for the entire time he coached Kirk here, I think it's safe to say probably he resented his presence. So I would not dismiss that. Personally, my problem is if you're going to bring him back and bite the bullet on the contract, it's sort of crazy. But what I don't want to see, and this is what we keep coming back to, is an extension. Because I think you need to see, okay, Kirk is Kirk. Again, statistically, a great box score. But what I don't want is, well, let's give him 3 more years now. And then in the second year of new coach, he says, this isn't really working so well. And you're like, well, yeah, but we're stuck with Kirk. So if Kirk had 2 years left and the cap hit was not as exorbitant as it's going to be, I'd probably be like, all right, I don't like it, but roll with that. But Declan, the problem is that cap hit in the last year. And if you extend him, now I think you've opened the door to a sameness affecting this franchise that you probably want to and need to change.
Yeah, it's tough. It makes a lot of sense. I'm at 55-45 that he stays and that he goes in terms that he's still going to stick around here. It's as much as there is probably a demand for other teams who are looking to upgrade at quarterback, it's still a tough pill to swallow for another team to take on a $35 million cap hit. Now, I think if the team that acquired Kirk, they would likely extend him to smooth out the cap hit immediately. They wouldn't just say, hey, let's roll with you for 1 year, and especially if they're also giving up capital to do so.
Yep.
But I agree. I can see a case for the Wilfs to say, you know what, we are going to give you one more chance, but I do think in general they've seen enough, and that they'll defer to the next head coach and now Kwesi of what they truly want to do there. I think their feelings are made up on how they feel about Kirk, and they'll defer the final linchpin to the owners, to the general manager and head coach of what they want to do with Kirk Cousins.
Kwesi needs to tell them.
Yeah.
we're moving on.
Yeah.
But the question is, he's young and in his first GM job, is he going to do that? And I don't know the answer to that question.
Indigo says, are we really done with Kellen Mond before we even see him get a legit shot? Are we done with Kellen Mond, Judd?
No. No, he's back. He was what, a third round pick, so he's got 3 years left on his rookie contract. No, he's not done. I have no idea if he's good or not. We don't have a clue. But no, you're going to give him a chance to at least prove himself. And I feel bad for him as well, because I think that 2022 is going to be probably the first time he's properly coached, if that makes sense. But I'm not done. I'm not there. There is no reason to pull a plug on that draft class, right? Wyatt Davis, we have no idea. He could start next year. We don't know. Rick's, for the most part, I think it's safe to say Rick Spielman's last draft class has as big of incomplete grade as a draft class can get. Like, we have no idea who was coached well, who wasn't. I am giving the majority, if not all of that draft class, Declan, basically a chance to come back, prove themselves. But Kellen Mond, I'm not done.
No, I'm not done.
Hell no.
Corey says, thank God Mond came up in these conversations on the YouTube channel, because we've been brainwashed by Zimmer about Mond, and I think there is something there, according to Corey. Yeah, I do think there's something there. He was damn good at Texas A&M. Is the potential that he is not a viable starting quarterback? Yeah, the potential. The odds are is he's not going to be a viable starting quarterback, but it's not zero. Like you have to figure out if this guy's actually legitimate to build around, and that's why you draft guys. That's why you take chances. The Vikings have rarely taken chances on quarterbacks in the draft, and Kellen Mond could be a bust, but also no. I agree. Let's not write him off yet. Let's see what he does with the new management. There could definitely still be something there. On that same vein, KFT says, I hope the new coach is really good at evaluating talent. How long did it take for Zimmer and his staff to figure out that Pat Elflein, Garrett Bradbury, etc. were just awful and not good? He wants to see the new management and new coach, for that matter, come in here and evaluate talent at a better rate than the Spielman-Zimmer dynamic did.
So Spielman and Zimmer did I think that there was a time period where that statement's unfair. I think that there was definitely a time where they did a good job. And in Elflein's defense, until he got hurt in his rookie season, he started at center, and I believe he hurt his shoulder, and then in the NFC Championship game, cracked his ankle really badly. He never came back from that, at least as a Viking. So I'm going to defend him a little bit there, because I think he was above serviceable, so not great, but he was solid until he got hurt. And then he came back, was moved to guard, and it was a disaster, and he subsequently was gone a few years after that. I think Mike and Rick at one time did a pretty good job, and I don't think it can be debated that there was a time where defensively Mike did an outstanding job. Last couple of years, not so much. So that's where I think we have to be. It's more fair to be careful, because when we're talking about what they did, there's a period of time where I'm not trying to say that they were Vince Lombardi, but they definitely can't be dismissed as being incompetent. Then the last 2 years, I think, got worse. So yes, your goal is now to have a GM and coach in place too that can identify properly what talent on the offensive side of the ball too, can identify quarterbacks and, like it or not, interior offensive line, because that has been a problem.
L says, I keep hearing about that everyone is impressed with this new GM, but he hasn't done anything. Spielman and Zimmer were more of a unicorn of how negative they made this whole organization, but this is the kind of crap that spews from a new GM. Yes, he's different because he's about analytics, and it's okay to be hyped, but I'm just saying to feather that brake pedal. Did you write that comment, Judd Solgad? Are you is there are you using an old Twitter account and or a dummy
alias,
YouTube account to put your own takes into our show?
No, that's not me, but it's exactly right. We just don't know. I told you and Phil that we do not know. It's fair to say that.
Right.
That's not being a negative person, look, this guy's new. Sounds like he's very smart. I recall back in 2016 when we were singing the praises of young Derek Falvey, and look, the Twins came out of the gate and eventually got good, and now they're not. So that's that note. I don't know who wrote that. That's not me, but I would like to say very nice, well done. Let's all just wait and see.
And our last comment here, as I always do, I always like to bring a Judd-related comment onto the screen here. Jesse says, Judd, it's okay to be excited. You don't always have to be worrying about the worst-case scenario. You can take a few days to be excited for the unknown. What do you say about always worrying about the worst-case scenario? What do you have to say to Jesse, negative Nancy?
Jesse, thank you very much. So, Jesse, here's the problem. I've decided that people don't get me, and here's how. I always see the potential worst case, but I'm the one that wants change. Like Vikings fans, and I'm not saying all, okay? But there seems to be a fairly large group of Vikings fans who are desperately afraid of, well, if you change the quarterback, what if we don't find a guy as good as Kirk? Or if you change the coach, and I'm the guy who says, no, it's time for change. Like you can tell with your local teams, it's not hard to tell when it's time that changes need to be made. And so I see a potential worst case, but I also say, let's change that. And Vikings fans are like, no, but what if we don't? And it's like, okay, so like the team gets bad, but then you get a high draft pick. Right. So I think people pigeonhole me in a way that's not fair at all, because I'm also the guy pounding the table figuratively in front of me. I'm pounding the table for change. So I think that's a positive. Change is positive. And Kwesi might be great. Wait and see. But would I have preferred that they kept Rick or went with Kwesi? I'll take Kwesi 10 out of 10 times. How's that for positive?
That's pretty damn positive. Woo! Good for you. Judd assumes the worst, hopes for the best.
Well, I see the worst coming, and I try and cut that off at the path.
Okay.
But the reality is, you also need to make changes. It's why the next thing, Dex, that I would like, and I think they will, the Vikings to work on the roster. A lot of fan favorites. Positively, I think, get rid of some of them.
Yeah.
That's a positive.
All right. That'll do it for our comments from YouTube. For Judd Zolgad, I'm Declan Goff. If you want a comment answered on a future episode, just comment in our YouTube section. Send us a note on the Score North app, and we'll be back. Who knows? We could be back in an hour. We could be back whenever. We're at the mercy of breaking news. We never know, but we do have 7 days a week of Minnesota Vikings content. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching.